We're going to work on hip mobility in standing. So I have two different props, but you could also use a wall and you could hold on to a chair, whatever feels great for you. Because unlike being on the floor, we don't have as much feedback. We're on 2 feet, so we have a lot more requirements of our core to stay stable to move the hip joint. Remember, with the hip moving, we want to keep the pelvis stable. So I have this. You could use a broomstick. You could use a mop. Just make sure it's kind of sturdy on one end. And the first thing, and we'll kind of do a progression, is you'll stand on one leg and just step one foot onto a yoga block. And as I'm stepping, I'm not tipping my body. I'm just holding it upright. This is called hip flexion. So I'll step and then come down, and using this to give me some stability, or I could have it on the ground, keep going. So we're going to do about, again, 30 seconds of this, and just make sure that there's not any rocking back to help that pelvis or to help the hip with the pelvis. And you can always, again, have a hand behind your head to help not any tipping back. So if this feels pretty easy, you can stick with this, or you can pick it up like you're marching. So it's a little more balance required. I could be holding that stick, but I'm getting the feeling of flexing the hip. That's where the leg is coming closer to the body. And it doesn't have to be high. No prizes for that. We're just trying to get mobility. So think of like moving the ball of the hip joint, and that's flushing it with some great synovial fluid. So we're going to feel less like rigor mortis when we get up trying to move. Okay, so that's hip flexion. Now we're going to come into hip extension. So that's the opposite. This is coming toward us. This is coming away. So you can put your hands on either side of the pelvis and slide the foot away. So I'm just sliding it on the ground. This is why I'm not on a yoga mat, so I can have some less friction. And go back to the degree that you're not tipping or arching your back. So have a hand on the front ribs. Use a stick to help you stay upright. So we're just getting that extension and holding everything steady. And you'll notice when you are put weight on one leg to move the other, you have to work that glute. So we're getting all this kind of more bang for our buck. Go as slow as you need to. And we do each of these for about 30 seconds. And so we've covered hip flexion and hip extension. Now, coming into some of the different ranges, the feet are parallel. You can have a stick. I'm not going to use it, but anything, again, to help you stay upright. We're going to move our hips, lift our feet, and then rotate from the hip for external rotation. And then we lift and we come back. So it's a tiny rock back because you don't want to be rocking your whole body. It's just enough to unweight the toes so that you can be freed to move in the hips. So again, I'm trying to find movement in the hips, not in the pelvis or above. You can put your fingers in these 2 front pelvic points right beneath that and feel the hip joint space. You might be really limited, and that's, don't try and force it. We're just, mobility drills are trying to get you more mobile. And that happens over time, but we want that pure mobility without any force from the knee or from the pelvis or low back. So try this a few more times. Kind of looks like a little cowboy. And that's hip external rotation. So we're rolling it out. It's also called lateral rotation, rolling it away. Now, medial or internal rotation is limited on many people. So we're going to, feet are parallel, knees aren't dropping in, and I'm going to lift just one heel from the top here. I'm going to roll in. Don't focus on the foot rolling, roll from the top. So you can even help that and then come back. Unweight, roll it in. Unweight the heel, so we're just alternating. And it doesn't have to be big, but it needs to be steady up top, stable in the pelvis. Unweight. And using your breath helps. Keeping the feeling of a really long spine to help the pelvis. And that helps the hip joint. And just, 30 seconds of this can feel like you've just started nourishing and like getting the wheels moving. So again, it's not about how big it is, just try and make it as pure as possible. So this is hip internal rotation. Now we're going to try some hip abduction. Ab is away. So I'll stand on one leg. I can have the stick for stability, slide the other foot away. You will shift over, but you don't want the pelvis to shift over. So you're going to have to hold that leg and feel like you're pulling up the stocking. And then I'll slide it in, and we'll alternate. Slide it out and in. Abduction going away. And you want the feet, including the toes, facing the same direction the front of the body is. So some people will try and roll the hip. You don't want to do that. So you can, what I often do here is I hold my pelvis steady, and then I'm moving beneath that, which is in the hip joint, side to side. And it might be just a little bit, okay? So we don't want to, and you can try a little bit of a lift off the floor, but that takes some balance as well. So you could do one leg at a time, but just sliding or a tiny lift off. And holding, lengthen the spine. I always like to feel like somebody's suspending me. One more on each side. Good. Now, we're going to add a lunge in here. So I'm going to have my left foot forward. I can hold the broomstick or stick or whatever. Again, it just gives me this uprightness because we want to mind that the ribs aren't thrusting, that we're holding there. And I'm just going to rock on my back toes. Now, some of you might have some rigidity in your toes, so it could feel sore, but this is great for the toes. And the big toe flexing here is important for this hip extension. So this shifting forward without moving my ribs and pelvis, they stay steady, is opening the front of this hip. And it might be just a little bit. If you're moving your whole body, just stay back as much as you can, and it can be a small movement. Small movement. And feel lifting up, like you have stuff inside your pelvis that you're trying to pull up through the body. So it unweights the other leg a little bit, right? So it's not going into the knee. Now let's switch sides. The front of that hip should feel it. That's the hip extension. And then this back knee can be soft. It doesn't have to be straight. And then I'm going to push from the toes. Keep doing that. I'm just going to show you some ways you want to avoid. I'm not moving my ribs or sticking my tailbone up. I'm holding that steady. And this glute being active will help open this hip, but I'm driving from the toes. Guess what this helps with? Walking. So if you have any tendency to duck walk a little bit, this might be the reason. The front of the hip gets really restricted for a lot of us. So keep lengthening out through the spine. 2 more here. And then just see if that feels better. Okay, so again, use this if you need it. We're going to do some circling. So think of like getting on a horse. This could be really small. Look how small that is. So the hip is a ball. So start with one hip. It can circle. It's called circumduction. So I'm just trying to move this hip, even though the lower leg is working. I'm moving, and you could really skim this. It's like making a circle, holding the other side steady, and then we're going to back circle. So doing it the other way. Make it small, but think about the ball. Think about the ball of that hip joint moving, and everything above. One hand could be here. The standing leg is working. That's why it's nice to hold on to something. So we get a lot of information into the body. How to stabilize the pelvis. Okay, let's switch side. Notice how that hip feels. It's like a good flush for it. So start with these small circles. As you progress, they can get bigger, but they don't have to get bigger. But as you get, it feels, you can start working on this range, but I would stick low at first. So it's really in the hip. Remember, the hip is like the top of, if I was stirring a cocktail or stirring a drink, I'm stirring from here, even though the movement is generated in the drink. So this is the top. Let's circle the other way. I'm stirring the hip from the top, from right here. And then the rest of the leg is reflecting it as well. And stand tall and breathe. Keep lifting up through the spine. This is also great for that standing leg. One more time. Okay, now we're going to parallel the feet. Again, I'm going to put the stick down, but feel free to use it. Feet are a little bit wider than hip distance. Hands on the front ribs. Chin is like holding a little tiny apple or nectarine, and I'm going to hinge back, bending the knees. Go to one side and then the other. These are side lunges, and we're using them as mobilization. So think of mobilization as we're getting hip mobility. This is flexion at the hip, but at the same time, we're mobilizing the tissue of the inner seam. Those are your adductors. So from the side, it looks like this. You could also hold on to a table in front of you. You can peek down, and you want your knees to bend but not jut forward. That means you're turning the pelvis. Think of the thighs as going back in space, like you're trying to sit on a bench behind you. And hold the front ribs steady. Don't lift your chin, because then you're more likely to overly arch the back. Just hold it neutral. And we'll just do this. I'm just pretending like I'm holding on to something, or my hands can be here. 5 more seconds. So moving is creating a lot of heat and stretching the tissue as well as mobility. The last thing is something that is functional, is a squat. We call this happy squat in LYT, and that is because usually if you squat, you're going to do it in the way you're used to doing it. So we want to think of holding the stick. You could hold the back of a chair, and you're going to walk away a little bit and then hinge from that. Ultimately, we can get into it from the ground, but we're going to start like this way. So we'll hinge here, and that means, again, the front ribs are in. There's a little pocket of space where you could put your fingers, and you could either hold the stick, back of a chair, or your hands could be on thighs. And we're just going to go back into the glutes. So I'm going back like I'm sitting in a chair, a little bit back behind me, and then back. So I'm mobilizing. Of course, I'm also strengthening. We're just going to do a few of these because we're really just getting mobility, but this is a strength requirement, and that's why hands on something, hands on your thighs can be helpful. 2 more like this. If you feel pressure in your knees, lift up in your abdominals more and stay up a little higher. And then we'll come all the way up. And as we come up, we try and align the ribs over the pelvis so our hips hopefully feel like they have that range to stand up tall. Dun, da, da. I hope you enjoyed this.